Hi there. So I guess I'll just give a little synopsis of what I've learned about Istanbul so far.
Hey!
Might seem crazy what I'm about to say. Sunshine, she's here. You can take a break. I'm a hot air balloon. Make it go to space.
Stay with me. Um, Basically, I've had a really great time here. It's been a extremely interesting experience. Istanbul is a city that is easily walkable, and I would recommend just sort of immersing yourself within the local population and staying not necessarily just within the tourist areas, because you get a better sense of Istanbul once you sort of step out of the touristy sections. Um, since being here, the tourism is, not really. I haven't seen a lot of tourists. I think that's probably somewhat attributable to the recent bombing of 10 German tourists a couple of weeks ago. And where I'm staying right now, I'm only about 1 minute walk from where that situation happened, and it's the only marking of that is basically a couple of flags, a Turkish flag and a German flag with a rose on it that marks the spot. Um, and so it's quite sad, but there's not a lot of mention that I've heard of the situation, um, other than there has been a decline in tourism because people have decided not to come, I suppose, because of that situation. Perhaps understandably or not so much. However, I guess that's terrorism, right? It changes people's attitudes and practices as far as traveling goes. So, that's been one of the issues that I've noticed. As well, Istanbul is a city of kind of contrasts in some ways. It's very old, ancient parts of the city that have beautiful old mosques and buildings and museums and palaces and these kind of things, as well as sort of a vibrant cosmopolitan feel in parts of the city as well. So it's been interesting that way. As far as the people go, uh, there's not, I say, anybody that really speaks English here. It's really, really low English speaking population. Um, I guess there's people from different parts of the area surrounding, like Syria and other parts of this area that have come here, but English is definitely not a very largely spoken language, which makes it a bit of a challenge sometimes to communicate, trying to find somewhere. If you're looking at menus, this kind of thing, so it's a little bit of a challenge to communicate that way. But otherwise, it's like going any other part of the world. It's not a huge deal. You kind of work through it and deal with it. So that's been okay. What else? There's been a lot of Syrian refugees in Istanbul that come. Probably I think the numbers are around 3 million Syrian refugees, and they've sort of taken over parts of Istanbul. They're not very visible, but you do see some of them. And pretty well the only people that I've seen who have been beggars in Istanbul have been Syrian refugees. Even them, they're not really even begging. more just offering a service. Like, for instance, someone came up to me and asked me if I would buy some Kleenex and for just a couple of lira, and they show you their Syrian passport, and it's hard not to go ahead and reach out for a minimal amount of money just to give them something. So you see some of that, and as far as walking the streets, there's if they think you're a tourist, there is a little bit of I wouldn't say aggressiveness, but they're a little bit more assertive, asking you to come into the restaurants and the stores, look at, for instance, carpets or what have you, to buy. So you just have to politely say no, and for the most part, they might try to ask you a few more times, but for the most part, it's they don't hound you, which is nice. But there is that aspect that when you come here, there will be some amount of assertiveness as far as trying to sell to tourists, specifically in the more touristy areas. When you get out of the touristic areas, definitely a decline in that sort of behavior. So that's why I would recommend definitely getting out of the touristy areas and going to see some other places as well. The waterfront is quite beautiful. The Bosphorus, which is a great trip you can do fairly cheap. I wouldn't be careful about getting wrapped up into touristy prices as well. There's ways you can do it where you just go down and to the waterfront and talk to people and find the best deals, or there's actually tourist information where they'll actually point you in the proper directions as where you can go and get the real price as opposed to the more inflated price, which is definitely the way to go, especially if you're on a budget. Speaking of budgets, I don't find Istanbul to be, that cheap compared to obviously a lot of other countries in Southeast Asia and probably India where we're heading next. So the dollar here, the lira, is about pretty well staples here of chicken and meat. If you're a vegetarian, I'm sure you can find vegetarian, but probably a little bit harder here. Well, as far as the friendliness of the people, they are friendly. I would say they're not unfriendly, but there's various degrees of friendliness. So there's some people that are willing to go out of their way and help if you have a question. But I'd say the 50% or more people are pretty well, neither here nor there. They're just kind of going amongst their lives, and if you stop and ask for directions, you might not get what you're looking for. A lot of times it's probably due to a language barrier. What else can I tell you about here? There's, religion is a pretty big part of Istanbul. Muslim is the predominant religion. I think it's most likely the only religion, but definitely the predominant religion. However, 80% of people, I understand, within Istanbul are not particularly religious. So, you find that, I think, probably going more out in the outskirts. But if you go in the old city, there's a lot of people wearing hijabs and niqabs and sort of thing. You hear the mosque intercoms going throughout the city 5 times a day for prayers. I guess just having people reminding them that it's time to pray and to come to the mosque. But my understanding is that 80% of people are not very religious, and so there's not a huge wearing of the niqab or the hijab particularly, but the ones that are, they're fairly, I don't know if they're very conservative, but they are definitely a presence. And it's interesting that you can find out where people are from from what kind of hijab they wear as well. So that was something I also learned. So the more colorful hijabs are people women who are from actually Turkey, and the ones that are in the black are Middle Eastern. So anyway, a little tidbit of information there. What else can I tell you? Very nice city. Very happy I came. Great place to travel. I've learned a lot being here. You can come and you can relax and enjoy the vibrancy of the city, the food, the culture, the drinks, the coffee, the Turkish coffee and Turkish tea are very nice. And not much of a waterfront. We have water down here, the Mirama Sea, but it's more of sort of for cargo ships and that kind of thing. So it's not a place of leisure. It's also freezing cold in a big sea. So the Black Sea is over here as well. So not really a place to come and enjoy the ocean or anything like that. So it's more of a city of culture and that sort of thing. As far as diversity goes, not a lot of multiculturalism by any means compared to Canada, in particular, Toronto. Pretty well just Turkish and Syrian and maybe a few other surrounding countries that emigrate into the country for business or what have you. We've seen some people from Middle East, Saudi Arabia, Qatar, Dubai, that sort of thing. But other than that, really no. More Muslim presence. I guess that's about it. Accommodations you can find fairly inexpensively, but I'd say it's a really good place to come and travel for maybe 3 to 5 days, get a feel and a taste for Istanbul. Beyond that, I'd say for myself, I think that's probably enough time. And we're here for 5 days in total, so one more day, and we're going to take the last 2 days pretty leisurely. We've walked and walked and walked, literally like 5, 6, 7, 8 hours a day for the last 3 days. So, and really got a sense of what it's like here, and I'm sure there's lots more to learn, but we got a good sense. So I think 3 to 5 days, in particular, just for Istanbul is great. And then of course there's the surrounding areas if you go out and do other things. There's lots of ruins and things like that about, but we're not going to be doing that. But there's lots more, I'm sure, to see in Turkey as well. Anyway, I hope that gives you a bit of an idea of what I think about Istanbul. I definitely give it a thumbs up. I'd say it's, as far as cost goes, it's probably a 5 out of 10. As far as accommodations, I'd say probably a 7 out of 10. As far as culture, I'd say 7 or 8 out of 10. And as far as food, I'd say again 7 or 8 out of 10 as well. It's been a nice experience, and we definitely recommend it. Okay, take care. Thank you. Stay with me. If you have any questions, of course, just ask me in the comments below if you're planning a trip here, or just comment. Feel free to comment as well. Bye-bye.
All I see are clouds above my head, dark clouds and cloth clouds are all I